And I think where we left off, Tammy, we were obviously we were talking about a number of different reasons why to brand yourself. And as we were talking, we were at a point of really finding out more about, things that it happens on the employer side of the house in terms of getting a tremendous amount of resumes for each position, and then sorting through all of them, which is an extremely difficult task on their part. And so, I know, and I can realize and understand why it's important to set yourself apart. So let me ask you this question, and maybe this will get us back on track. Have you seen several resumes? You've seen several resumes a day in your experience. What do resumes usually look like?
Well, and thanks for letting me know at what point it was dropped, because I just kept talking, and then all of a sudden I got that really loud busy signal in my ear. Chronological resumes are 95% of everything that I see, and it's also 95% of everything that an employer will see, whether it be a hiring manager or a recruiter or HR. And chronological resumes, like I said before, basically we've got the summary paragraph up top, and then you go into, you might have a list of your strengths. Oftentimes what I do find is that people list too many strengths, and they'll list those skills that everybody has in looking for that position. And I understand that you're wanting to show them that you have the baseline skills and the baseline knowledge, but you really, in a 15, 20-second commercial, you've got to make sure that you set yourself apart and you define yourself by those things that are different than everyone else. So, for instance, if you're looking for a six-figure position and you put that you've got Microsoft Office skills, well, that's kind of a gimme. At a six-figure level, you should know how to work Microsoft Office. So take off anything that's different there. Chronological resumes highlight liabilities. And those could be, and liabilities really, my definition, and that's really a term that I use. I don't know if anybody else uses it, but it's obstacles that will keep you from getting a phone call. It's things like periods of unemployment, especially a long period of unemployment. It's now getting, it's August, so if you were unemployed in 2010, even if you just have the years on there, it's still showing that you've been unemployed for 8 months or longer. So it does highlight liabilities. That's one of the first things that they see if you're looking at a chronological resume. Also, like I said before, the experience from a different industry. In other words, you don't want them to define you as a consumer products guy or a finance industry woman. You want to be defined by your strengths and the transferable skills that you can bring to any position in any industry. Also, a chronological can highlight non-impressive titles, like I mentioned before. It can highlight a lack of career progression. If you've been at the same job for a long period of time, for instance, I had a recent client named Melissa who was or has been a pharmaceutical rep for, I think, 19 years. She loves being a pharmaceutical rep. She loves it, and she's getting a resume looking for another position proactively because she might lose a position. I mean, there's certainly downsizing with certain companies going on, but she's not showing any kind of career progression, and so an employer, without talking to her, doesn't understand, hey, I love this position, and I make really good money at it. They may just think that she stalled in her progression. Also, big one, liability of age, advanced experience, advanced age, anything that shows that you had a career in the 70s or even in the 80s. You don't necessarily want to put details of that experience in any kind of resume because you don't want them to disqualify you because of advanced age before you get a chance to sell yourself over the phone. And then, of course, any gaps in career history. If you've got 2, 3, 6 years of you could be taking care of ailing parents, you could be a stay-at-home parent, you could have tried your hand at self-employment, but it didn't work out. There are a lot of reasons for having a gap of employment. including long unemployment, and you don't want to highlight that. The biggest reason that I don't love chronologicals is that a lot of times it's not compelling. I mean, there's not much out there that on a chronological that I see that makes an employer want to call you, for the ones that I see. I can write a compelling chronological resume, but for the most part, there's not, the resumes that I see, there's not a huge compelling reason for someone to quickly say, yeah, I want to call this guy or this lady.
Well, and Tammy, I think one of the things that you also pointed out when you actually did my resume was that you said, hey, Louis, you got a 2-page resume going on here, and one of the things that was least attractive about it was the fact that a lot of my job responsibilities and awards and things that I had were on the bottom of the second page, and so it was hard for an employer to really see that or to gather that that was an important achievement for me.
Absolutely. I see that a lot with people who have MBAs. They'll put MBA at the bottom under education, at the bottom of the second page, and sometimes with 3-page resumes, it's at the bottom of the third page. If you spend a lot of time and money on that MBA, it really needs to be on the front page. And that's why I like 1-page resumes. But yes, a lot of awards, a lot of really great experience, and some really great achievements can be hidden in the middle or the bottom of the second page. Nobody gets to look at that. So I want to go over some of the things that you shouldn't have in a resume. So these are also listed. Along with that teleclass goodies page on my website, you should also have the link to resume tips. So I've put together some resume tips, and this is on there. So if you want to look at that, you don't necessarily have to take all of these notes from scratch. You can look at that. So on a resume, here's what I recommend you not have, and this is what I see oftentimes with the resumes that come to me for jobs at a high level. You don't want to have any job history detailed past 10 or 12 years, or really anything saying that you have over 15 years of experience. And for instance, like I said, having college graduation date of 1977 or detailing what you did in the early 80s, they're going to know eventually what your age is or around what your age is, but you don't want to let them know in the initial exposure to you. So anything more than 15 years, I usually say 10 to 12 years, you can just show at the bottom of your resume as earlier experience includes, and then put the job title and the company you worked for, but not the dates. Also, I see past salary on a resume. That's a big no-no. Don't put past salary on a resume. Don't even put the dates of graduation from college, and never put high school graduation. Unless you graduated from a nationally known prestigious high school, you really don't want to put a high school on there. And I do see that sometimes. But I recommend don't put the dates of graduation from college on there. They don't need to know when you received your degree. Also, most of the resumes that I see show months of employment. I would recommend only putting years. And that way, if you did have a short stint somewhere, it was only 6 months long, if you put just, let's say, for instance, 2008 to 2009, they don't know what month you started and what month you ended. So it's always a good idea just to put the years. It does minimize if you were a job hopper or what they consider to be a job hopper. Most people leave employment through no fault of their own. So, only put the years of the employment. Also, most of what I see on a resume is just a list of job duties or job responsibilities. And employers don't really want to know a job description. That's not their main intention for looking for a resume. They want to know what you actually accomplished on the job. And this is the most popular thing that I see. It's just a bullet-pointed list of job duties. And they want to know, what did you do other than show up for work every day? How did you make a difference in the company that you worked for or companies? Also, personal stuff. no one right now wants to take the time to read the personal stuff. It's not relevant to making a company money, generally speaking. And you can give them that information, but the resume is not the time or the place. Your initial exposure with them is not the time or the place to show the personal stuff. That can come out in a phone or a face-to-face interview. Same with references. The time and place to give references is later, and I recommend after a successful face-to-face interview or if they ask for them, whichever comes first. But you don't even have to put references upon request at the bottom of your resume. Everybody now knows that references are upon request. You really need just 3 or 4 professional references. You certainly don't need personal references anymore. No one calls them. And then, I'm a big believer of 2 or more pages. You got 20 or 30 seconds of somebody's attention, so it really needs to read like a 30-second commercial. It's a teaser, really, of the highlights of your experience that compel them to give you a phone call. And you have to remember that the resume is not there to get you a job. It's not there to show them everywhere that you've been and everything that you've done. It's only there to get you a phone call. Okay? So I've also listed, like I said, I listed these on the Teleclass Goodies webpage that I mentioned earlier in the call before we got cut off.
Well, Tammy, again, and we certainly appreciate everyone, both on the call and on the webinar, who have stayed on the call. I would bet, Tammy, that between the time that we lost the connection, there have been a number of questions that have come across. Do we have time just to maybe just go through 1 or 2 of them, and then we can talk about, what do you envision are the characteristics of a good resume?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. That's a good idea because I do want to respect people's time. We can certainly go over. I can give you some additional information after the top of the hour. So I'll continue on with this call after the top of the hour. But I know a lot of you are listening in because you're on lunch break or you have other things going on at 1 o'clock Central. So if you'd like to ask a question before the top of the hour, please feel free. If you're on the phone, go ahead and press *2 to raise your hand. And if you're online, the webcast, feel free to type in a question if you have a question so far on what we've covered, and I'd be happy to answer those. So I'll give you just a second to fill any of those out, and I'll take a look at the questions online and also see if there's anybody raising their hand.